Hey guys, welcome back. I'm back from a vacation and we are going to take a look at the new Mystical Space Typhoon Archetype. Yeah, I am not joking. We are getting a Mystical Space Typhoon Archetype. For anyone not knowing what that is this old spell card. That is a quick play spell that can destroy one spell or trap, also set one on the field. So very interesting. We had something like the Dark Hole Dragon. This was not an entire archetype, but only a single card supporting Dark Hole, I guess. And now we have, I think, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We have 10 cards, which is a big archetype. Does not have an extra deck monster for now, supporting Mystical Space Typhoon. Super crazy, and we are going to take a look at the cards today. The first one we have here is Ken Rantaro Megala, and the name of this is Magnifistorming. So Magnifistorming makes sense. Store Mystical Space Typhoon, I guess. Level 3 wind fairy monster. All of them are wind, I guess. Some of them are 3, and then some others are not. So yeah, rank 3 XYZs, but they lock actually. So you can only use, or you can only special summon this once per turn, and then use a second effect once. If you have Mystical Space Typhoon in your graveyard or your opponent controls no spells or traps, you can special summon this card from your hand. All of them have this. This also says if you have Mystical Space Typhoon in your grave or your opponent controls no spells traps, you can special summon this, and this one the same thing. So you can summon these base monsters here if you have a Mystical Space Typhoon in your graveyard or your opponent does not control a spell or trap. Which obviously, if you go first, that's not a problem. Your opponent doesn't control a spell or trap then, but going second, playing into a board, you would need to get a Mystical Space Typhoon first in order to make this happen. And then secondly, if a Magnifistorm quick play spell or Mystical Space Typhoon is activated, you can special summon one Magnifistorm monster from your deck with a different name from the monster you control. Also, you cannot special summon for the rest of this turn except wind monsters. So a very nice card that we have right here. The second one, also level 3 wind here. So we had the first effect already. If this card is normal or special summoned, you can add one Magnifistorm monster or one Space Typhoon from deck to hand. And this one basically adds a spell or trap. So you have the spell trap adder here, the monster adder here, and then the special summon from the deck guy here. And these can also fetch you a Mystical Space Typhoon, which obviously is nice because if you can use the Mystical Space Typhoon, and you will have to use it on your own card if you want to activate or if you want to have it in the graveyard on your going first turn. But we will see in a second that this is possible. We have the level 6 here, which is the Magnifistorming Codea, like a crow, I guess. You can only use first and second once per turn. If a quick play spell card is activated, you can special summon this card from your hand. So the way that it is worded right here means that this is not a quick effect, but this is a trigger effect. So you will have to activate this in like the next chain. So you would activate a Mystical Space Typhoon or one of the quick play spells from the archetype that you can see right here that we are going to take a look at in a second. And then afterwards in a new chain, basically like a Kashtira Fenrir or Unicorn, you will be able to then use this effect here. You can special summon this card from your hand, which is nice and means that you could in theory also play this on your opponent's turn. Question is if you want to do that. If this card is normal or special summoned, you can add one Magnifistorm card and or one Mystical Space from deck and or graveyard to the hand. So this can fetch everything and also from the grave. Also you cannot special summon, so once again the wind monster lock. And this is where I don't really think this will be in like a rank 3 XYZ deck. I'm not quite sure what we are combining this with. You can let me know in the comments if you have any idea. I think the fact that we are locking ourselves out of anything else but wind monsters, I think this is the thing that makes this not super great. Otherwise, the cards do not read that bad. And then this one cannot be destroyed by battle or card effect while you control or while your opponent controls no spells or traps, which, yeah, this is nice, I guess, but not super important. And then we have Magnifistorm Vortex Beauty Valrun, level 9, with 0 attack, 3000 defense. You can only use first, second, and third once per turn. If a quick play spell is activated, you can special summon this from your hand, so like the other one basically. And when your opponent activates a monster effect and you have a Mystical Space Typhoon in your graveyard, quick effect, you can negate that effect. Then if you have 2 or more Mystical Space Typhoons in your graveyard, you can destroy that monster. So I guess the negate isn't that hard to make, basically. You will search a Mystical Space Typhoon on your first turn and you will try to get it into the grave either by setting it or by using it, but having 2 might be a bit harder. And if Mystical Space Typhoon is activated while this card is in your graveyard, you can special summon this. So this is a monster negate, which is definitely a very nice card to have. This is something that you want to have on your end board in this specific archetype. The next one we have here is the Magnifistorm Great Pyre Phoenix, also level 9, and here we have the reversal, so 3000 attack and 0 defense. You can only use once again again, first, second, third. If a quick play spell card is activated, we can special him. Once again, if a quick play spell card is activated, we can target up to 2 cards our opponent controls and shuffle them into the deck. This is not a quick effect, but a trigger effect. So this would once again Kashira Fenrir, Kashira Unicorn like happen in a new chain, which makes this worse in most cases and better in some other ones, because if this would be a quick play spell, then you would have this labyrinth situation with the Lady Labyrinth that needs to directly be chained to the trap that is activating in order to set another trap, so you could chain something in between there. And if a Mystical Space Typhoon is activated while this card is in your graveyard, once again, you can special summon it. Then we have the Magnifistorming Stanza Tribute, quick play spell, activate one of these effects, but you can only use each once per turn. At 1 level 4 or lower Magnifistorm monster from your deck to your hand, so you can fetch all the starters basically, which is definitely quite nice. Or you can add 1 Mystical Space Typhoon from a deck or from graveyard to your hands. You can also, and we have already seen this, recover your resources, for example, your Space Typhoons. If this card is destroyed by the effect of Mystical Space Typhoon, you can set this card. And this obviously is so that we can, in theory, get a Mystical Space Typhoon in the graveyard on our first turn, but we need to destroy something from our field then. And here we basically have this archetype ensuring that we don't go -1 with this, but we can set it like it is in a white forest basically, because if we can get a Mystical Space Typhoon into the graveyard on our turn, this monster effect negation would be live already. Otherwise, if we need to set it and use it on our opponent's turn, then obviously we won't be live with this negate here. So we could play around Nip, for example, or something if we can get this guy early on to the field. Also not that hard to get it to the field. We could search it with the Monster Searcher here, the first one, and then if we then have a Mystical Space Typhoon or something else, or if we activate it, we can just special summon the guy. Then the other one is the Magnifistorm Summoning Technique. Activate one of these, send 1 Magnifistorm monster from a deck to the graveyard, or add 1 Mystical Space, and then once again this setting thing here. Send 1 Magnifistorm monster from a deck to grave. Why would we want to do this? Oh, we could send these here. Okay, makes sense. Okay, so we send them the Phoenix or the negate. A very nice way to get into the negate, because we can just send it to the graveyard and activate the Space Typhoon and then summon it. And then we also would have the negation live, because the Space Typhoon is in the graveyard, because otherwise this one would not be on the field. A very nice one. Definitely like this one more than the other one, I think. Then we have Magnifistorming Sight Trance. Then we can only activate 1. We can draw 2 cards, then discard 1 Magnifistorm card. Once again, or quick play spell, or if you don't have any in your hand, you discard your entire hand. Okay, obviously you wouldn't activate this if you don't have the cards, but yeah, we have some good cards to discard. The Phoenix, the negate guy, the Beauty, and yeah, we can then revive them with the Mystical Space Typhoon, drawing 2 cards. That's definitely very nice, and this discard isn't even a big deal. Makes sense in a lot of situations, I guess, because you could also discard a Mystical Space Typhoon, thereby getting it to the graveyard without needing to destroy something. Once again, this can be set if destroyed by Mystical Space Typhoon. And then we have Magnifistorming Sovereign Tyranny. Once per turn, you can target 3 quick play spells in your graveyard. This is a continuous trap, including a Magnifistorm card. Apply these effects in sequence, so both shuffle them into the deck, then draw 1, and wind monsters you control will gain a 300 attack and defense, which is nice, I guess. So we can recoup our resources and also draw each turn. This is nice. Once per chain, when Mystical Space Typhoon is activated, you can target 1 face-up card your opponent controls, negates its effect. Very nice. Once per chain, by the way, so you could do this multiple times each turn. If this card is destroyed by the effect of Mystical Space Typhoon, you can set this card. It basically reads like a field spell, but is a trap, which makes it worse, obviously, because we have to set it and then need to activate it on our opponent's turn. But I do have to say, and I'm very interested in your opinion, so let me know in the comments, I do have to say that I think this archetype reads quite nice, honestly, but the lock into wind special summon is just something I'm not quite sure. There are not that many great wind monsters, neither from the extra deck or from the main deck, basically. So I'm not quite sure whether this archetype can hold on its own, so to say, but obviously this will also get another support wave in another set, and maybe then. So at the moment, it looks like we would play this as a standalone archetype with, I don't know, a lot of copies of these cards, and then maybe a lot of hand traps, and then you can win through the grind game, I guess. This is kind of like a grind grindy deck in some ways, not the grindiest deck, I guess. But yeah, these cards are very interesting, and I think it's super cool that they basically made an archetype surrounding Mystical Space Typhoon. Crazy. I have never expected this. Also from an artwork perspective, I think cards like the Phoenix look very, very nice, so I'm very pleased with this. Also, this guy, a very cool card. Let me know in the comments what you think. Are you ready for the Mystical Space Typhoon archetype? Obviously, in Master Duel, we will get this whenever. This is way, way in the future, but I think it's always cool to take a look at what is coming next, especially if it's such an interesting archetype.